The night should have ended quietly. Instead, it ended with laughter that cut deeper than any insult. The bar was loud, crowded, and soaked in weekend energy. Saturday night. Music thumped through the walls, glasses clinked, people shouted over each other like they were afraid. Silence might expose something inside them. Near the far end of the bar, away from the noise, a single dad sat alone. He didn't look drunk, just tired. His elbows rested on the counter, fingers wrapped around a glass he hadn't touched in a while. His shoulders were tense, posture heavy, as if the day had pressed down on him and never let go. His phone lit up once. He checked it. No message. He turned it face down again. Across the room, the single mom walked in with her friends, laughter spilling ahead of them. She looked confident, dressed sharp, makeup flawless, voice loud enough to draw attention. She enjoyed being seen, enjoyed being heard. Her eyes landed on him, the quiet one, the lonely one. A smirk curved her lips. "See him?" she said, leaning toward her friends. "Alone, again." One of them laughed. "He looks depressing." "Perfect," she replied. Before anyone could stop her, she walked toward him, heels clicking with intention. He looked up when she stopped beside him, surprise flashing briefly across his face. "Hey," she said warmly, too warmly. "Mind if I sit?" He hesitated for half a second, then nodded. "Sure." She slid onto the stool, leaning closer, smiling like she meant every word. "You look interesting, mysterious, even." His brows knit together slightly. "I'm just having a drink. I like quiet men," she continued, touching his arm lightly. "It's refreshing. Most guys here are unbearable." He shifted uncomfortably but stayed polite. "Thanks." She asked questions. Where he worked, if he had kids. When he mentioned his daughter, his voice softened without him realizing it. He didn't brag, didn't complain. He just answered honestly. She nodded, praised him, laughed at things that weren't funny. He didn't see it. Or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to believe someone actually wanted to talk to him. Then the laughter came. Her friends surrounded them, one by one, drinks in hand, eyes full of mockery. "Well, well," one of them said loudly. "Look who made a friend." Another laughed. "You flirting with him now?" The single mom leaned back, arms crossed, her smile changing, sharper, crueler. "Relax," she said to him, loud enough for others to hear. "We were just having some fun." They laughed openly now, commenting on his clothes, his quiet nature, his seriousness. Someone joked about him looking like he belonged in a waiting room, not a bar. He didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't defend himself. He stood up slowly, placed money on the counter, and looked at her one last time. There was no anger in his eyes, just disappointment. "Have a good night," he said. Then he walked away. The laughter followed him for a moment, before fading into the noise of the bar. No one noticed the way his jaw tightened as he left. No one cared, and none of them had any idea who they had just humiliated. Before we continue the story, drop a comment telling me how you liked it, where you're watching from, and give this story a rating out of 10. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the best stories. Monday morning hit her harder than expected. The single mom stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blazer for the third time. The confidence from Saturday night was gone. This wasn't a bar. This wasn't her friends backing her up with laughter. This was real life, rent due, school fees pending. One interview that could change everything. She grabbed her folder, double-checked her CV, and whispered to herself, "You deserve this." The building was massive. Glass everywhere, clean, cold, powerful. She felt small the moment she stepped inside. People in sharp suits moved with purpose, like they already belonged here. She didn't. At least that's what her mind kept telling her. At the reception desk, her name was checked off the list. "You'll be interviewed by the CEO directly," the receptionist said politely. Her heart skipped. "CEO?" She swallowed. "Okay." The elevator ride felt endless. Her palms were sweaty, her thoughts racing. She rehearsed answers in her head, trying not to think about Saturday night, trying not to think about the man at the bar. The doors opened. The floor was quiet, too quiet. Thick carpet swallowed her footsteps as she walked toward a large office at the end of the hall. The door was open. Sunlight poured in from tall windows. Inside, a man sat in a chair, turned toward the glass, hands resting calmly on the armrests. "Good morning," she said, forcing confidence into her voice. No response. She took another step. "I'm here for the interview." The chair moved, slowly. Her stomach dropped before her mind caught up. It was him, the single dad, the man they laughed at, the man she humiliated, now dressed sharply, calm, composed. His tired eyes were the same, but everything else made sense now. The silence, the restraint, the way he never reacted. Her grip loosened. Her CV and documents slipped from her hands, scattering across the floor. She gasped, bending down quickly. "I'm so sorry." He stood and knelt to help her, gathering the papers neatly, handing them back without a word. His touch was polite, professional, no bitterness. "Please," he said calmly, "have a seat." Her legs felt weak as she sat down, heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. Shame crept up her neck, burning worse than fear. She waited for him to say something, anything. He didn't mention the bar. Instead, he returned to his chair, folded his hands, and looked at her like any other candidate. "Let's begin," he said. "Tell me about yourself." She stumbled through her introduction, voice shaking. Her answers weren't bad, but her confidence was gone. Every word felt heavier under his gaze. Every pause reminded her of Saturday night, of laughter, of cruelty. At one point, she couldn't help it. "I want to say something," she blurted out. He raised an eyebrow slightly. "Go on. I didn't know," she said quietly, "about who you were." A silence fell between them. His expression didn't change. "That," he said evenly, "is exactly the problem." Her chest tightened. He leaned back, eyes steady, not angry, not cold, just honest. "Let's continue," he said. And she realized this interview wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about who she really was. The room felt smaller as the interview continued. She answered questions about schedules, staff coordination, conflict handling. On paper, she was qualified. She had experience. She had survived worse than long shifts and difficult people. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was the weight sitting between them, unspoken and heavy. He listened without interrupting. Occasionally he nodded. Occasionally he wrote something down. His face gave nothing away. Finally he closed the folder. "I want to step away from your resume for a moment," he said. Her heart sank. "This role isn't just about managing a floor," he continued. "It's about how you treat people when you think no one important is watching." She swallowed hard. "Saturday night," he said calmly. There it was. Her chest tightened. She lowered her eyes, unable to meet his gaze. "I behaved badly," she admitted. "There's no excuse." He studied her for a long moment, then stood and walked toward the window, the same place he had been sitting when she walked in. "I go to that bar once a month," he said. "Same night, same time, no entourage, no title." She frowned, slightly confused. "I like to see how people treat me when they don't know who I am," he continued. "Not because I enjoy it, because it tells me who they really are." He turned back to her. "Your friends laughed. You let it." The words landed hard, but he didn't raise his voice. She felt something crack inside her. "I was trying to fit in," she said weakly. "I thought if I didn't play along, they'd turn on me." "They did anyway," he replied simply. Silence. "I'm not a bad person," she said suddenly, almost pleading. "I've just made bad choices." He considered that. "I believe you're capable of more," he said. "But capability and character are not the same thing." Her eyes stung. She nodded slowly. "I'm a single father," he added. "I'm tired. I'm human." I sat there because I had a long week and needed quiet. Not pity, not mockery. Shame flooded her completely now. She thought of her own son, of how she'd feel if someone laughed at him someday, just for being different. "I'm sorry," she whispered. This time, it wasn't about the job. He held her gaze. For the first time, something softened in his eyes. "I know," he said. He returned to his desk and sat down. "This position," he said, "requires leadership under pressure. I won't decide today." Her heart jumped. Not rejected. Not yet. "I'm giving you 1 week," he continued. "You'll start as a temporary assistant on the floor. Observe. Learn. No authority. No shortcuts." She looked up, shocked. "You're giving me a chance?" "I'm giving you a mirror," he said. "What you do with it is up to you." She stood slowly, clutching her folder. "Thank you," she said. "I won't waste it." He nodded once. As she reached the door, he spoke again. "For what it's worth," he said, "I hope you prove me wrong." She paused, then turned back. "I hope I do too." She left the office with shaking hands, knowing this wasn't redemption. It was the beginning of it. Her first day on the floor felt nothing like a fresh start. She wore the same professional smile she'd practiced for years, but this time, it didn't protect her. She wasn't introduced as a manager. She wasn't introduced at all. Just another temporary assistant, standing near the edge of the room while people rushed past her. Some ignored her. Some talked over her. A few looked her up and down, deciding quickly that she didn't matter. It stung. By noon, her feet hurt and her head throbbed. She was asked to run files, refill supplies, handle complaints no one else wanted. A supervisor snapped at her for a mistake that wasn't hers. Another rolled her eyes when she asked a question. She felt the irony sharply. This was exactly how he must have felt at that bar. Invisible, misjudged, small. She kept going. Across the building, in his office, the single dad watched quietly through reports and updates. He never interfered, never checked on her directly, but he noticed everything. How she stayed late, how she apologized when she bumped into someone, how she took responsibility even when it cost her. It wasn't enough yet, but it was something. On the third day, she saw him on the floor for the first time, not as the quiet man at the bar, not as the interviewer behind a desk, but as a leader. People straightened instantly, conversations stopped. Respect filled the air. He spoke calmly, listened carefully, corrected mistakes without humiliation. When a young employee admitted to an error, expecting to be scolded, he simply said, "Fix it, learn from it, move on." She watched from a distance, something unfamiliar tightening in her chest. That night, she sat in her car long after work ended, staring at her steering wheel. The person she'd been didn't fit anymore, not with what she was seeing, not with how she wanted to be. On Friday afternoon, a situation exploded. A customer screamed at a junior staff member, calling her incompetent, lazy, worthless. People froze. No manager stepped in. Everyone waited for security. Before she realized what she was doing, the single mom stepped forward. "Ma'am," she said calmly, "I can help you, but you can't speak to her like that." The woman turned on her. "Who do you think you are?" "Someone who knows mistakes don't define a person," she replied. The room went quiet. The customer stormed out. The junior employee stared at her, eyes wide. "Thank you," she whispered. She felt hands shaking afterward. She hadn't planned it. She just couldn't stay silent. From across the floor, he saw everything. Later that evening, as people packed up, she was called to his office again. This time, when she walked in, he wasn't turned away. He was already facing her. "Sit," he said. She did. "You stepped in today," he said. "Yes," she admitted. "I hope that wasn't a problem." He shook his head slightly. "It was necessary." A pause. "You didn't do it for recognition," he added. "You did it because it was right." She nodded, unsure what to say. "This week," he continued, "has shown me something." Her breath caught. "But redemption," he said, "isn't a moment. It's consistency." She met his eyes. For the first time, there was no tension, just honesty. "I understand," she said. He stood, offering a small, genuine smile. "Good." And for the first time since that night at the bar, hope felt real. The weekend passed quietly, but her mind didn't rest. She replayed the week over and over, the way people treated her when she had no title, the way he spoke to employees with calm authority, the way guilt no longer felt like an enemy but a reminder of who she didn't want to be again. Monday morning she arrived early, earlier than anyone. She organized schedules before being asked, helped a coworker who usually ignored her, stayed patient when a delivery was late and tempers flared. No one praised her. No one noticed. And for once, that was fine. By midweek, things began to shift. People stopped snapping at her. They started asking her questions. A supervisor trusted her to handle a small team during a busy hour. She didn't raise her voice, didn't flex power. She listened. And it worked. Late one evening, as the building emptied, she found him standing near the elevator, jacket over his arm. He looked exhausted, but less heavy than before. "Long day?" she asked carefully. He nodded. "Always." They stood there in silence for a moment. Not awkward this time, just quiet. "I wanted to say something," she said. "Not as an employee, just as a person." He waited. "I was cruel that night," she said. "Not because I didn't know who you were, but because I didn't stop myself." He studied her face, searching for something. "And now?" he asked. "Now I know better," she replied, "and I'm trying to be better." The elevator dinged. He stepped inside, then paused. Trying counts more than you think. The doors closed. That night she cried in her kitchen after putting her son to bed. Not from stress, from relief, from the strange feeling of becoming someone she could respect. Over the next few weeks, her temporary role quietly expanded. She wasn't officially promoted, but responsibilities followed her naturally. She solved conflicts, covered shifts, protected people when needed. He noticed. Not with praise, with trust. One afternoon, she was asked to join a strategy meeting. She sat at the edge, same place he once had at the bar. This time, no one laughed. They listened when she spoke. After the meeting, he stayed behind. "You remember where you sat that night?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, I do too," he said. "I almost didn't come back after that." Her chest tightened. "I'm glad you did." He looked at her then, really looked at her. Not as a lesson, not as a test, as a person. "You've changed," he said. "I had to," she replied. "My son deserves better." "So does my daughter," he said quietly. Something settled between them, shared understanding, shared damage, shared hope. It wasn't romance yet, but it was the beginning of something careful, honest, slow. And for the first time, neither of them felt alone in the room. Things didn't suddenly become easy after that. If anything, they became more complicated. People noticed the shift before either of them did. The way he asked for her input during meetings, the way she anticipated problems before they reached his desk, the way their conversations lingered a second longer than necessary. Whispers started. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, just quiet looks, raised brows, assumptions. She felt it first. One afternoon, a coworker said casually, "You're lucky. Not everyone gets this much attention from him." The words stayed with her all day. That evening, she knocked on his office door, nerves buzzing under her skin. "Come in," he said. She stood stiffly. "I need to say something." He looked up, instantly attentive. "I don't want special treatment," she said. "If people think I'm here because of anything other than work, I can't accept that." He leaned back slightly, considering her words. "You think that's why I trust you?" he asked. "I think people assume," she replied, "and assumptions ruin things." He nodded slowly. "You're right." A pause. "I'll step back," he said, publicly, professionally. Her chest tightened, but she nodded. "Thank you." What neither of them said was how much that decision cost. Over the next few weeks, distance returned. Not cold, just controlled. Meetings became formal again. Conversations shorter, necessary, and somehow that restraint made everything heavier. One night, she stayed late fixing a scheduling mess caused by a system error. Everyone else had gone home. The lights were dimmed. She didn't hear him approach until he spoke. "You should go home." She turned. "I will, just finishing this." He walked closer, stopping at a respectful distance. You don't have to carry everything. She exhaled sharply. I'm used to it. He studied her face. That's not strength, that's survival. The words hit her unexpectedly. I don't want to survive anymore, she admitted quietly. I want peace. Something shifted in his expression. The guardedness cracked just slightly. So do I, he said. Silence filled the space again, not awkward, not tense, just full. He glanced at the clock. I'll walk you out. In the parking lot, cool air wrapped around them. She unlocked her car but didn't get in right away. Why did you really give me that chance? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Because I've been judged at my lowest, he said finally, and because I believe people can change. If they choose to. She nodded. Thank you for believing that about me. He met her eyes. Thank you for proving it. They stood there a moment longer than necessary. No touch, no promise, just something real forming quietly between two people who had both been hurt by the world in different ways. As she drove away, she realized something important. This wasn't a story about punishment or power. It was about two flawed adults learning how to see each other clearly and choosing kindness when it mattered most. The tension didn't explode. It simmered. Weeks passed, and what existed between them became harder to name. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It wasn't guilt either. It was something quieter and more dangerous. Awareness. They were aware of each other in rooms full of people. A glance held a second too long, a pause before speaking, a shared look when a problem unfolded exactly as expected. Nothing inappropriate, nothing obvious. But it was there, and both of them were careful, too careful. For her, life outside work didn't slow down. Her son caught a fever one night, the kind that makes every parent panic. She missed a morning meeting, arrived late with exhaustion written all over her face. No one questioned her. But he noticed. He didn't ask in front of others. He waited. How's your son? He asked quietly later that day. She froze for half a second. He's okay now, thank you. You don't have to apologize for being human, he said. She smiled faintly. I know. Still feels like I should. That was the thing about her. She carried guilt like it was permanent. Like one mistake defined her forever. And he understood that more than she knew. At home, his daughter had started asking questions again. Not about money, not about his work. About why he never smiled the way other dads did. Why he was always tired even when he wasn't busy. You're here, she said one night, sitting beside him on the couch. But you're not here. That cut deeper than any boardroom insult ever had. He thought of the bar, the laughter, the way he'd walked away quietly because reacting felt pointless. He thought of her, too, of how easily cruelty had slipped out of her that night, and how hard she'd worked since then to undo it. People were complicated. One Friday afternoon, everything collided. An internal review exposed a manager who had been quietly mistreating staff for months, yelling, threatening hours, making people feel small. HR called an emergency meeting. Emotions were high. Fear thick in the air. She sat stiffly at the table, listening as employees spoke one by one. Some cried, some shook with anger. He let them talk. When the manager tried to defend himself, blaming pressure, deadlines, stress, she couldn't stay quiet. Stress doesn't give you permission to hurt people, she said firmly. The room went silent. The manager turned on her. Easy for you to say. You've got protection. Her chest tightened. That word again. Before she could respond, he spoke. She has no protection, he said calmly. She has standards. There's a difference. The decision was swift. The manager was removed pending investigation. After the meeting, she avoided his office. She didn't want rumors, didn't want assumptions. But later that evening, she found him in the hallway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked worn. That was risky, she said quietly. It was right, he replied. She hesitated. People will talk. They always do, he said. You can't live your life reacting to noise. She studied his face. You learned that the hard way. He nodded once. There was a long pause. I need to ask you something. she said finally. Okay, if I hadn't changed. If I stayed the person I was that night, she said, voice tight, would you have fired me? He didn't answer immediately. Yes, he said honestly, without hesitation. She exhaled, surprised by how much relief that brought. Good, she said. So this isn't pity. No, he agreed. It's choice. That night something shifted again. Not forward, not backward. Deeper. A few days later, the company held a small internal event. Nothing fancy, just food, music, and forced socializing. She almost didn't go, but she knew hiding wasn't the answer anymore. He arrived late, scanning the room instinctively. He found her near the back, talking to a junior employee, laughing softly. He felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Jealousy. It annoyed him. He joined them briefly, kept things light, then excused himself. He didn't trust that feeling yet. Didn't want it to control him. Later, as people began leaving, she stepped outside for air. He followed a minute later. Cold night, quiet street, the city humming softly in the distance. This feels familiar, she said, half smiling. Minus the cruelty. He let out a small breath of a laugh. I prefer this version. She leaned against the railing. Do you ever think about how close we came to never crossing paths again? All the time, he admitted. And that scares you? Yes. She nodded. Me too. Silence wrapped around them, heavy but safe. I don't want to rush anything, she said suddenly. I don't want this to be messy. I don't do messy, he replied. Not anymore. She looked at him, really looked. The tiredness was still there, but so was something steadier now. Resolve, warmth, care. I hurt you, she said softly. And you still gave me space to grow. You took it, he corrected. I just didn't block the door. Their eyes met. This time, neither looked away. The moment hovered, electric, fragile. He didn't touch her. She didn't step closer. Because this wasn't about desire alone. It was about trust. And for two people who had both been reduced to jokes, judged without context, and misunderstood in silence, trust was everything. That night, they went home separately. But neither of them slept much, because they both knew something inevitable was approaching. Not a grand confession, not a dramatic kiss, but a decision. The decision didn't come with fireworks. It came quietly, the way real change usually does. It started on an ordinary morning. She was late again, not because she overslept, but because her son had refused to let go of her hand at the school gate. He'd wrapped his small fingers around hers and said, "Don't go yet." She crouched down, kissed his forehead, and promised she'd be back soon. But the guilt followed her all the way to work. When she arrived, breathless and flustered, she expected the usual polite nods. Instead, she found a note on her desk. Take the afternoon off if you need it. Family matters. She stared at it longer than necessary. Later that day, she knocked on his office door. I didn't ask for this, she said, holding up the note. I know, he replied calmly. That's why it matters. She sat down, hands folded tightly in her lap. I don't want anyone thinking. Stop, he said gently. This isn't about optics. This is about being human. She laughed softly, shaking her head. You say that like it's easy. It isn't, he said. But it's worth it. There was a pause, the kind that used to make her nervous. Now, it just felt honest. I've made a decision, she said quietly. He straightened. So have I. They looked at each other, a shared understanding passing between them. I'm resigning from the temporary role, she said. I don't want this position to exist in a gray area. He nodded slowly. I respect that. But, she continued, heart pounding, I want to apply formally, with a panel, no exceptions. A small smile touched his lips. That was my decision too. The interview happened the following week. A full panel, no favoritism, no shortcuts. She answered confidently, owned her past mistakes, spoke honestly about leadership, humility, and accountability. When the offer came, she cried in her car. Not because of the title, but because she earned it. The first person she told was her son. He hugged her like she'd won the world. The second person was him. "Congratulations," he said, genuinely proud. "Thank you," she replied, "for holding me to a standard instead of saving me." Months passed. The company thrived. So did the people inside it. The whispers faded, replaced by respect. She became known as someone who protected her team fiercely, someone who remembered names, someone who never forgot how it felt to be small. And him? He changed too. He smiled more, went home earlier, showed up for school events. Let go of the idea that strength meant silence. One evening, long after work hours, they found themselves back where everything had begun. The same bar, same corner, different people. "I avoided this place for a long time," she admitted. "So did I," he said. They sat in silence for a moment, then laughed softly at the irony. "I owe you something," she said. "You don't owe me anything," he replied. "I owe you the truth," she corrected. "I was insecure. I was cruel because I wanted approval, and I hated myself for it." He looked at her, steady and kind. "You're not that person anymore." "And you?" she asked. "What did you learn?" He thought for a moment. That being invisible doesn't mean you're insignificant, and that some people hurt others because they're hurting themselves. She nodded. "I wish I'd known that sooner." "We learn when we're ready," he said. This time, when silence settled between them, it felt different. She reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It was earned. Their relationship unfolded slowly after that. Blending families, shared dinners, homework chaos. 2 children learning that adults could make mistakes and still choose better. There were challenges, doubts, conversations that weren't easy. But there was honesty, and respect, and forgiveness. Years later, when someone new joined the company and whispered about the CEO being just another rich guy, she smiled to herself. Because she knew the truth. She had seen him at his quietest, his most human. And she had been at her worst when he was at his best. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that titles don't define worth, and first impressions can be dangerously wrong. People often judge others when they feel powerful, forgetting that kindness costs nothing and cruelty leaves scars.